Happy Friday morning, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of Believe in White Sox on what is the delayed home opener for the Chicago White Sox as they will play at Rate Field for the first time this season against the Toronto Blue Jays. Remember to like and subscribe to the podcast, and also make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube page. Hit like on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Greg Moraz, your host, and we are 1 week into the White Sox season, and it's not good. That's just the simple long and short of it. It's not good. The White Sox are 1-5 to begin the year, and it's not like you can say that the numbers around the periphery are even that good. The calendar turned to April on Wednesday, and that didn't seem to help out the White Sox, who, if we look at how this season has begun, they lose 14-2 on opening day, and they were never in it, other than a leadoff homer from Chase Meidroth to start the game. They lose 6-1 the second game of the year. Then they hold a 7-2 lead against the Milwaukee Brewers in the third game of that series. Pardon me, a 7-3 lead. Actually, it was at 1.72. It was 7-2 going to the bottom of the sixth inning. The Brewers score a run in the sixth, and then they score 6 in the eighth. And the White Sox lose 9-7. Then they find a way to beat the Marlins on Monday, a 9-4 win where everything seemingly went right. And then the last two games down in Miami were awful. A 9-2 loss on Tuesday and a 10-0 loss on Wednesday. And the problem with this White Sox team is that, and granted, it's a small sample size, and we know that. We understand that. As White Sox fans and observers, we have to look at this through a glass half full, just simply because of the fact that the expectations for a lot of people are not that high. Now, my expectations for this team were higher than what they've shown so far. And if this was a 2-4 start, I wouldn't necessarily be as concerned. And even with a 1-5 start, there's still obviously a lot of time. There's 156 games left to go in order to make this palatable. But the problem is that there are some clear alarm bells right away. And it starts off first with the pitching. Through 6 games, there are 3 teams in Major League Baseball that have ERAs over 5. That's the Tampa Bay Rays, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Chicago White Sox. The Philadelphia Phillies have the second worst ERA in baseball through 6 games at 5.46. The White Sox ERA is over 3 runs worse than that at 8.63. That's right. The White Sox have the worst ERA in the league through 6 games by over 3 runs. Offensively, there are 4 teams in baseball that are hitting under 200. The White Sox are one of them at 192. And that equates to a run differential of minus 31, which is more than 16 runs worse than the second worst team, which is the Boston Red Sox at minus 15. There are 3 teams in baseball who are 1-5. That's the A's, the Red Sox, and the White Sox. The A's run differential is minus 10, the Red Sox run differential is minus 15, and the White Sox run differential is minus 31. So not only have the White Sox been bad in their 5 losses, and I'll say 4 losses, they've been downright awful. They've already had 2 games this season where they've allowed double-digit runs. They have 4 games this season where they've allowed at least 9 runs. And they haven't had a game in which they've allowed fewer than 4 runs. Their lone win being a 9-4 win over Miami on Monday. So what's the problem? The problem is that this starting rotation had question marks coming into the season, and there's nothing at this point that has shown me that there aren't still question marks. Davis Martin, in my opinion, is the most solid pitcher in this rotation given the amount of experience he's had at the big league level and the success he's shown when he's been at his best. And he's the only one that's turned in a respectable start so far. The biggest concern to me is Shane Smith. And the reason why it's such a big concern is that Shane Smith was awesome last year. He was the surprise of the year, a Rule 5 pick that ends up being the Sox lone all-star and the best pitcher in that rotation in 2025. He had a rough spring training, and a lot of people said it's spring training. We're still confident in this guy based on what he showed us last year. The sample is big enough at this point, through 2 starts plus his spring training starts, to be ultimately concerned. He didn't get through the second inning on opening day, and he allowed 8 runs, 7 earned, in his last start against Miami on Wednesday. Shane Smith, because he's no longer on that Rule 5 returnee contract, that's not the way that you phrase it, but that's how I'm going to put it at this point, is in danger, in my opinion, of being sent down to the minor leagues, and might need to be sent down to the minor leagues if he can't get himself together in the next 2 to 3 starts. Now, I don't think you panic if you are Will Venable or Chris Getz and say, we're going to have to send our best pitcher from last year down, but you cannot have him go out there and have performances where he cannot command the strike zone. He's issued 4 combined walks to this point in 4 2/3 innings. And again, he's made 2 starts and pitched 4 2/3 innings. His opponent's batting average to this point is .440. His whip is .321. That is not a major league pitcher. I don't know what happened to Shane Smith of last year, but he needs to find his way fast back to his old form. The bullpen is also concerning. And the bullpen's concerning because this bullpen was supposed to be better, and to this point, it's not. Tyler Gilbert lasted 1 appearance before he was sent down. Yedickson Paez lasted 3 appearances, allowed 6 runs in 3 total innings, and the White Sox first Rule 5 pick of this past offseason has already been DFA'd. Sir Anthony Dominguez has only pitched an inning in the 3rd, but he's allowed 2 runs. Jordan Hicks has had severe command issues, and he's issued 5 walks in 2 1/3 innings over 3 appearances. Sean Newcomb has been up and down in his 2 appearances, and Jordan Leisure has been good at times, and then he gave up a homer on Wednesday. So I don't know what to make of this pitching staff, which was supposed to be better, at least in the bullpen. And the starting rotation is of ultimate concern. Now, you may not compete this year, but if Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith are big league ready, in your opinion, they need to find their way to 35th and Shields at some point this year. Because I look at where this rotation was last year, and I look at where it is now, and Shane Smith has regressed. I don't know how good Sean Burke is and if he has made any progress from last year. His first start was not good. 4 innings, 4 runs, 3 earned, and 5 strikeouts in Game 2 of the year against Milwaukee. Now, today, in the home opener, Grant Taylor is going to be used as an opener, and Sean Burke will follow him, which I think is a really interesting strategy, considering I was hoping that Sean Burke, or rather that Grant Taylor, would be back in the rotation at some point. Or in the rotation at some point, I should say, given that he was drafted as a starter with that 2nd-round pick a few years ago. So the pitching is of big concern. On the offensive side of things, Munetaka Murakami has been good. Despite 9 strikeouts and 21 at-bats, he's hit 3 homers already. But nobody else is hitting for a high average. Miguel Vargas had a really big day on Monday, and so far he's got 5 hits in 19 at-bats, but you've got guys that have gotten off to terrible starts. Edgar Carroll, 1 hit in his first 13 at-bats. Andrew Benintendi, 3 hits in his first 15 at-bats. Same thing for Luis Angel Acuna. Chase Maidroth, The on base is still at 333, but the average is at 222. Again, small sample sizes. Everson Pereira, he's been okay, but this is not somebody that I really want to be an everyday outfielder after having watched him for a few games. And Colson Montgomery, so far, big strikeouts. 9 Ks and 22 at-bats and hitting 182. So, and Lenyn Sosa has yet to get a hit. He's 0 for his first 11. Again, this is a small sample size, but for high optimism from what a lot of White Sox fans had, this is not the way that you wanted to start the year. This is, in all likelihood, maybe some nervous jitters. Maybe this is a team that has yet to come together, but it's one thing to lose 5 of your first 6. It's another to lose 5 of your first 6, be non-competitive in 4 of those games, and then completely collapse on yourself in another one of them. And it wasn't like you blew a 3-run lead. You blew a 5-run lead. You gave up 6 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning when you entered that frame up 7-3. You have enough veteran pitching in that bullpen, whether it be Hicks, Dominguez, Murphy, Newcomb, to be able to prevent the Milwaukee Brewers from scoring 4 runs, which was the difference at the time, over the course of the final 6 outs. And you didn't even record 6 outs because you gave up 6 runs and your offense went night-night in the top of the 9th inning. This team has got to find a way to be competitive and grind out at bats. Grind out innings when they may not be at their best. Because if this is what we have to watch, like last year, the starting pitching through the first couple of weeks was amazing. And while the offense wasn't there, we could accept the results because of the fact that the starting pitching was great. There was a feeling that part of this offense might struggle, and I can accept that. I cannot accept a pitching staff that is completely non-competitive. And this pitching staff was supposed to be better. And it's not. Now, we can revisit this in a week after the White Sox have their homestand against the Blue Jays and the Orioles, and maybe we feel differently. Maybe it's a better second start or long appearance for Sean Burke. Maybe Anthony Kay gets through the 5th inning. Maybe Eric Fetty pitches better, and maybe Shane Smith finds what made him so good last year. But right now, I have zero optimism of this pitching staff to get it turned around. And granted, either we're going to find out that they will level off to the medium, and then everything will be all right, or this is going to continue to trend in the wrong direction. And it already feels like you're in a horse race, and it's a long horse race, which, horse race and an MLB season are varying lengths. But it feels like you didn't just start out of the gate slow. You threw your jockey off the back of the horse, and the starting gate won't open. That's how the start to this White Sox season has felt. At least from watching these games and observing the way that this team has played, they didn't just get a slow jump out of the starting gate. The starting gate hasn't even opened yet. The last part of our show, which is not going to be very long, is more my observation in the first week about ABS and how ABS has brought accountability to umpires where there wasn't before. I understand why people don't want robo-umps, because I think that there is a human element that should always stay in the game. But I think the way that the system is set up, if you challenge a pitch and you truly believe that the call was not close, then I think that it is within the right of either the batter, the catcher, or the pitcher, if they believe that they have been wronged by the umpire's call, to challenge it. And if it is significantly either outside or inside the zone compared to what it was called, I have no problem with that. And here's the thing, there are umpires that are bad enough at this to where there are balls that are being called balls that are clearly strikes and vice versa. And CB Bucknor is one of the main examples of an umpire that when they're calling balls and strikes is awful. I mean, he has been one of the worst graded umpires in baseball for the last 15 plus years. And now, this system, he's finally facing some accountability for how awful of a balls and strikes umpire he is. That's not to mention what happened in the Brewers and Rays game earlier in the week when he completely wasn't looking at the play when Jake Bauers hit first base, was clearly safe, and then said that he never touched the bag. He touched the bag in the middle of the bag. And everybody could see it except for him because he wasn't looking at the play, even though he was standing about the distance from me to this wall. I mean, it boggles my mind that some of these umpires don't face any sort of accountability tests or retraining, or like you have to do when you go get your driver's license renewed, like taking a driving test again, taking an umpiring test again. If you see 100 pitches that are scattered all across the strike zone and on the borders of it, can you properly call balls and strikes? Can you properly evaluate the game as it is supposed to be called? And ABS is going to bring that to the forefront. Now, I don't think there's any sort of system to where if you have a certain percentage of challenged pitches overturned that you're going to get your status as a Major League Baseball umpire revoked. But I think that's something that, as we get into the next collective bargaining agreement, that we're going to have to face. We're going to have to bring to the table. Because if ABS is going to stay in the game, and it is, you have to get better umpires to where there are less challenges. Because at this point, there are plenty of umpires who are having pitches challenged, and whoever is challenging them is right more often than they're not. CB Bucknor had a game. It was the Reds and Orioles game. He had a game where he had 8 pitches challenged and 6 were overturned, including an at-bat to Eugenio Suarez, where Suarez challenged 2 different pitches. Both pitches would have struck him out, and both times the pitches were outside the zone and the at-bat continued. The ABS system is going to be difficult to navigate at first. Some people may be overzealous, but at least to this point, I think it's working. I think the system, the way it's designed, is working. And I'll be really curious if after a month we see which umpires have the highest percentage of calls that are challenged overturned. I'd love to get those numbers after a month-long sample size, because it is going to come to the forefront which umpires are properly doing their job and which umpires are not doing their job, or rather doing their job poorly. So that's going to do it here for this edition of Believe in White Sox. To give you the weekly rundown, it is going to be the White Sox home opener later today down at Rate Field. It will be Grant Taylor who will be the opener for the White Sox in this game. And let's take a look at who's going for the Blue Jays. I haven't even been paying attention to at least the opponent probable. Oh, Dylan Cease. So Dylan Cease is going to make his return to the South Side. And we'll start for the Blue Jays. Then on Saturday, a 110 start at Rate Field. It'll be Anthony Kay against Eric Lauer. Sunday at Rate Field, another 110 start, Davis Martin against a pitcher to be announced. And then the White Sox will have a 3-game series, 640, 640, and 110 starts, April 6th, 7th, and 8th against the Baltimore Orioles. Starters have yet to be determined for those games. And then the White Sox will have a 3-game road set, or rather a 4-game road set at Kansas City beginning on Thursday, the 9th. That's it. That's all for Believe in White Sox, and hopefully the White Sox are going to have a much better homestand than they did a road trip. Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you after the Blue Jays series.